Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Simon Gannon. I'm Director of Marketing here at Mercier, and it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to this webinar today, which is going to be held by our CEO, Sami Benchkroon, talking about research integrity across the research lifecycle. Before we get started though, I just want to mention our Q&A. Hopefully participants will be ready with questions throughout the session. If you want to pop those into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, I'll answer any simple questions along the way. So if you've got any straightforward questions, I'll do my best to answer them. But the rest will turn over to Sami at the end of the session. Now I'm going to hand over to Sami for your presentation. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Simon, for this lovely introduction. I hope you can all see my screen. If not, you can, or we can already test the chat or the Q&A function right here. So it is my absolute pleasure to talk today about a topic that is very big and important, which is the topic around research integrity. But before start, obviously the usual joke. Good morning and good afternoon to the world. I'm here in Washington D.C. In one of the Mercier offices, and I'm looking forward to the discussion around research integrity. And again, as Simon said, please add all your questions there, and then I'm happy to have a conversation at the end of the webinar. So let's get straight into everything. With a statement, which is, without rigorous research integrity, public trust in science is at risk. And I think that this topic around research integrity and about trust in science is something that we've especially seen in the last 2-3 years, also over the COVID pandemic, more and more come up, and something that needs our full attention. And we know that we all know that the research integrity matters a lot, because not only science itself matters as such, not only the scholarly publishing process, but I believe that it is a process for human development and how we interact together, and that is something that where research integrity is a big topic. So without trust, we literally have nothing at all. And you might have seen at the beginning of the year those headlines about Alzheimer's research, which was a huge challenge, a huge problem. This very misconduct delivered a serious blow up to sort of the public perception of science, and of course it also set research back by a long time. So it's a very messy, and it's a slow progress. So something that we really need to look into. So let's put some flesh around some numbers around research integrity, and that is that retractions and cases of research misconduct play out publicly, and while $58 million is only 1% of the NIH budget, that was that resulted in papers retracted due to misconduct. It actually is a little bit high, and it's something that public does not really see. So upholding high standards of research integrity needs just much more checks and balances, and we also need to take the pressure of sort of a very single round of peer review, even if it's a little bit of a wider round and a wider cycle of peer review. We actually need to improve the entire integrity structure and the entire research integrity process throughout the research process from the very beginning of the research cycle. And what I mean with that is that the way we at MOC look at research is that it is a process like that iceberg model, right? A good presentation needs an iceberg model. So we always show that, and basically what you see from bottom to up is a process that takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and at the end you see very visibly the papers and the preprints, but underneath the surface you have a lot of data, a lot of documents, a lot of research output that is being shared and processed that is unfortunately not really structured, and those can be conference posters, conference presentations, data sets, and all of those activities. They need validation at every single point, and all those activities need to be part of a bigger solution. So when there's only pressure of a very high the degree of peer review at the very top of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, then that is just too much pressure for the entire process of an entire multi-year research process. So for us looking at that, it's really no wonder why that leads to many failing processes, and why that leads to things falling through the cracks. So what I would love to spend a little bit of time on is to start thinking about the changing culture of research integrity, right? So how can we as an industry, with all the players involved, by the way, change the culture of scholarly of peer review in scholarly communications. So this is something that we like to show also in our presentations with our partners and clients, where research integrity is something that needs to be just at the center of everything, right? At the center of all those processes, and there's many challenging mindsets and many challenging structures around that. For example, the publish or perish mindset. That means that researchers motivation, unfortunately, also is driven by a high amount of publishing output, right? And the reason of very clearly at hand, it advances the career. So that model of publish or perish that everybody discusses since decades is something that obviously drives also a couple of that model. And then we believe that not clearly is linked with research integrity, right? It doesn't really work together very well. And then there is the publishers and societies who drive to publish more content, which also means at some points that there is a danger of sacrificing in integrity. So there's many elements involved. Also the one that I mentioned earlier, which is the hyper focus on the journal article as the most valuable or most central research object that puts really unnecessary pressure on that stage of the research life cycle. So I believe that we can change the culture on the scholarly communication culture and culture of publishing by sort of taking away that pressure of journal article, and by really also starting to put in the center of the dialogue other scholarly outputs that might be pre-publications. And everybody that knows me knows that I speak very passionately about conferences and conference output, conference posters, conference presentations, that I feel needs to take a seat at the table when it comes to validating the research integrity at the very early early process on. And the focus on research integrity at the early research stages will make it easier also to that changing environment that we have in front of us, right? That we have ahead of us, being more and more OA open access journals are being published. There's the OSTP statement from a couple of weeks ago. All of that needs a foundation that, and we'll talk about technology in a bit, but also needs a little bit more focus on everything that we consider early stage research. So early stage research in the sense of posters, presentations, conference proceedings, outputs, and so on. So we just by observing, the industry has sort of created a system where career advancement and financial stability do not really prioritize research integrity, and that leads to a system where we also have, unfortunately, some bad actors. There's many predatory conferences and more that are arising. There's predatory journals, on the other hand, which is not really a new topic, but it is in light of the research integrity issue and more publications that are being published, and more important ones. So these bad actors take advantage of that pressure to publish, right? And they are harmful to the overall call for research integrity. So, as I said, journals, articles are the sort of tip of the iceberg in that analogy. But there's so many additional research objects and research stages on the research process that we need to look into. So, if we can relieve some of that stress on the journal article, maybe not even relieve some of the stress, but just look at also the earlier stages with a much higher scrutiny, which with a much higher focus, by already embedding research integrity workflows in earlier stages of the research process, I believe we can start solving those issues, right? We can support the entire research process much better. And now, of course, you might think, you might know where this is going. Mauricier is a technology company. We breathe technology, we breathe innovation, and we have been working a lot in that space of early stage research in the last year. And I believe that using technology can actually fill the gaps in this topic of research integrity, and we see huge potential of many kinds of technology, many newer developments to fill in the gaps and solve the problems of research integrity. And we do believe, and we've seen that. Fortunately, we see that technology partners have more and more a seat at the table, and are part to drive that change and that innovation for scholarly communication. So there is a much richer dialogue, and we see that in the last few months, mainly in the few months, and basically also over the time after within COVID, that scholarly publishers and technology partners, at least we see that a lot, that we work together on innovative solutions, innovative workflows that create higher efficiency, that integrates those checks and balances at the very early stages of the process. So we see a lot changing there already. So let's talk a little bit about peer review, and let's talk about peer review also around early stage research. So first of all, peer review is the backbone of research integrity, right? There's a lot that happens in that phase of the research process, but it's not perfect at all. At times it is manual with uploads and downloads, and in many multiple systems, technology systems throughout the process, and we lose loads of data throughout the process. So that entire aspect of actually tracking the progress much better and seeing and following also the data throughout the process is something that really does not work in this environment where we have so many multitudes of systems that don't really talk to one another, and we're still subject to, unfortunately, unconscious bias as human peer reviewers, and the time to spend conducting peer review is not really properly properly recognized as an achievement, right? So that entire topic about crediting for the peer review is unfortunately not really present. And overall, the process, as we observe it, is not really transparent or user friendly, and obviously that does not apply for some, but just generally we see a huge problem in those elements. So much has been said about the element of unconscious bias in peer review. Take, for example, the Matthew effect, but there's others that can be really harmful to for example, marginalized authors, right? And automizing those workflows and adding much more technology, checks and balances, can add much more objectivity to peer review. And I just at that point, I really want to make I really want to emphasize on the fact that I'm not advocating in any way to sort of replace humans in the process of peer review. I do see, though, that technology, it needs to be a partner for peer reviewers along the process, a partner that facilitates, that structures, that sorts, that gives a great usability, a great user experience, that is really that that companion throughout the way to make the lives of peer reviewers much easier. It should be an enhancement, right? Allowing the peer review to be much more objective and overall to scale more easily. So technology can also make that process efficient. That's the last idea that I shared in my previous slide. But what I want to also add is adding sort of those details about, for example, AI enhanced checks that are more and more now being explored as technology evolves. And if we can add those at the point of submission, that can immediately eliminate, for example, manuscripts that fall through those integrity checks, or that are maybe not relevant for certain topics or for the scope of a certain conference or journal. And the integrated platform might also eliminate the need for manual uploads and downloads, right? So the inefficiencies in the system. So when everything sort of happens in one platform, it's a much better experience for everyone involved, and reduces significantly the risk of drop-off. And you see me talking more about the integrated platform that also provides integrated data. We talked about data earlier, but if you have sort of the integrated platform, you can see and you can track much better the progress of things. Whether you're interested in identifying, for example, emerging topics very early on for journals in the future, or if you want to identify future leaders who are active in peer review, or who are going to be the next authors in journals. All of that can really be identified in the early stage research if we put much more effort in there. And we see with our partners and with our clients a lot of that improvement happening, because their focus on early stage research supports the entire operations of the organization. So when all workflows are on one platform and very much integrated, there's a lot that can be enhanced around reviewers, around keyword extractions, around topic analysis, around future authors for the journals, and so on. So the advantages there are quite varied. And there's also some aspects of research integrity that where technology, specifically in the realm of research integrity, can add additional value. And I'm just mentioning a couple here. Citation manipulation can be reviewed at a much faster rate with technology. Salami slicing or tortured phrases can be run through natural language processes baked in an integrated platform, and of course the plagiarism detection element is enhanced with integrations, for example, by Authenticate. So we've talked a lot. It's time sort of for summary and for the discussion. Just to look a little bit about the high level takeaway. So we've talked about contradiction in our culture that challenge research integrity. We've talked about some ways that technology can sort of close the gaps in the research integrity workflow and can be really a companion. We've talked about the power of early stage research as such to raise the integrity bar, and I think that is a pivotal moment in the industry, quite frankly, that will support this science overall by really adding more validational aspects early in the process. And what I want to close up with is to really talk about sort of takeaways. So what can you all do to start changing the research integrity practice internally? So, first step, there are 3 steps that we would, as Mercier, we would like to recommend, as this is something that we go through with all of our clients. First step is to audit, right? Where's your organization? Where's your organization at now? Are there pain points in your review workflows that you can solve quickly? Where's your sort of where are you now with your thinking? Further, it's very important to set goals for research integrity. Really, just identifying what do you want to achieve, right? Maybe you want to explore new solutions or new partnerships. Maybe you want to reduce retractions by a certain percentage, and so on and so forth. So really understand what do where do you want to set your goals on a year-to-year basis to see where can for example technology guide you towards. And last, which is not to forget, is really the community, right? Engage with the community. There's many great speakers, many great advocates about research integrity, many great groups that are talking about research integrity. So talk to the people who keep the research integrity wheels turning, right? Also reviewers and editors hear the suggestions that they're seeing, and really talk about standards that you really want to maintain. And with that, I would love to close my little talk here around research integrity, and very excited to sort of hear questions and hear comments, and hear everything that you guys have top of mind, and handing over to Simon to moderate.
Thank you, Sami. That was brilliant. Really, really interesting stuff. We have some questions in. First one is, you talked about community, and research has so many different stakeholders across the industry. So when we think about societies and researchers, reviewers and publishers, funders, how do we solve this collective problem of research integrity?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. So I'm going to be biased in my answer, which me being part of a technology company, I do really believe when I said technology players need to have a seat at the table, that I would suggest societies and society publishers really reach out to their technology partner, to the ones that are supporting, and really just question them. Can we build together, and can we sort of integrate an end-to-end workflow, from the first call for abstract over the first call for poster, integrating also the conference activities, not necessarily the virtual conference or the hybrid meeting, but really just the content. Can we all integrate that into one in one integrated workflow platform to talk to all those technology players, your partners, if you're a society or publisher, bring everybody on board. Again, the community of editors, of reviewers, maybe also the conference department, to see how everything can be put together. And really define what you want to achieve, and I think that if you've done that, you can already see what you need. You can map those processes against how you work on them now. You can sort of identify inefficiencies in your own process, maybe, that can be solved with technology. And then I can just see from our experience with working with societies and publishers that to that date, there is just many elements that are done manually or that are done through workarounds. There's a lot that can be improved. So again, sit together with your technology partner. We're happy also to be having that conversation with you. We can give you sort of an insight into how we see a fully integrated workflow. So there's many opportunities to get into a conversation and to really discuss how to solve that.
Okay, thank you. You talked a little bit about AI and using that to work in tandem with human reviewers. Do you think this will also help with the ethical concerns around paper mills and predatory journals? And also, how can technology help in these spaces?
Yeah, well, so my answer for that is very clearly yes. And I've been, traditionally a little bit skeptical about that in the research process, because I feel that the technology a couple of years ago, or even last year, was not really at the point where it is now. So I think we are seeing currently a paradigm shift, and we are seeing results, and we're testing that internally heavily, and are already applying that to certain processes. And we see astonishing results in solving some of the issues that you are mentioning. And I do think that we'll see also in the near future on how AI and how newer technology can actually improve also the research integrity process on many different elements on learning, right? Because what we see a lot is that the bad actors that we talked about, there's also an innovation happening within bad actors, right? So there's a natural progress. So if we don't keep up with technology, and quite frankly, AI could be a sort of key technology there, then it's going to be tough to always sort of. We will always be back in one or two steps behind. So let's try to find a way on being actually one or two steps ahead. And I feel that type of technology can actually solve it. And I'm very happy to explore more in one of the next webinars. So that could be a good topic, Simon.
Very good. And there's a couple of questions around early stage research, not so much around that it lacks integrity, but maybe that it's still in development. So I guess the question is early stage research really the solution to research integrity and the challenges that we face?
So I would say that it's one of it's a supporting element. So when looking at early stage research, I do believe that it needs a combination of both, right? It's not only the fact that you can suddenly go through a high amount of early stage research, but it's a combination, right? It's a combination of having early stage research within a integrated workflow that speaks to sort of the publishing team. So in other words, traditionally within societies and within publishers, you've had the publishing team and you've had the conference team, which I sort of see very much in that early stage research world. And what we see more and more is those teams coming much closer and be really aligned and really talking much more with one another, so that you have basically the integrity checks at early stage research, but you'll also need to add more integrity checks in the workflow for the journal article. So it's a combination of both, but starting with early stage research and really just implementing those is a huge win for at least all our clients, and we see a massive effect there, also with us developing further.
Okay, thank you. When data or early stage research can be manipulated to be interpreted any which way you want for the highest bidder, how can you manage integrity around this?
Yeah, so I guess the question about manipulated to the highest bidder. Let me try to sort of answer it as I've understood it. So we don't see any manipulation in the process. So we really just see a support, right? So if you have, for example, a conference where you have a call for abstract, call for paper, call for proceedings, that the idea here is not to allow the machine to self-select or to say, we'll take that out or that. It's literally a process of support. Is basically a process of stringently structuring the step-by-step approach in the process in a much more efficient way than anything else. So I feel that when it comes to the manipulation, I feel that the support would be really just an underlying support for the process, but not really an automated self-selection. So that I hope that gives a little bit more clarity. So it's not really about the highest bidder. It's literally just everyone should have access to these support elements at scale, and that's what we are working towards.
Okay, thank you. Final question then. I know you're an optimistic person, Sami, but how optimistic are you about research integrity in the future? Have we got reason to hope?
Oh, absolutely. And again, you know me as the optimistic person here. So absolutely. And I know because I've seen things in action, right? I've seen things work out very, very nicely. And to the question that you asked, that someone asked before, it's about a helping hand, right? It's creating efficiencies. It's creating a support for reviewers, for authors, for editors, for publishers, for societies. Unfortunately, when it comes to technology, the industry is still sort of stuck in the 90s, quite frankly. So what I'm very hopeful on, and that I see it in a day-to-day practice, is that technology is more and more sophisticated, and technology is focuses more and more around the user, right? The researcher. So I do feel that just by focusing on that, we have a very, very hopeful future ahead of us. And again, not that technology dominates, but technology supports along the way very, very nicely.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sami. And thank you to all of our attendees and their brilliant questions. If you'd like to discuss research integrity with us, then do get in touch. You can contact us on our website, and we'd love to talk to you about our thoughts and feelings and solutions to research integrity. We'll also be sending you a recording of this event shortly, so look out for that. But really just remains to be said, thank you very much for your attendance and your attention. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.